In the bustling suburb of Evergreen Hills, where manicured lawns hid simmering family tensions, lived Eleanor Harrington, a spry 68-year-old widow with a sharp mind and a lifetime of secrets tucked away. For the past 8 years, Eleanor had shared her spacious Victorian home with her son, Theodore Teddy, to those who knew him as a boy, and his wife, Vanessa. The house, with its creaky wooden floors and sunlit bay windows, had been Eleanor's sanctuary since her husband, Reginald, passed away a decade ago. But Vanessa's arrival had turned it into a battlefield of subtle slights and overt disdain. It all started on a crisp autumn afternoon in October 2025. Eleanor's phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "I grabbed that vintage necklace from your drawer for the gala tonight. Nana figured you wouldn't miss it." Eleanor stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the screen. With a calculated calm, she typed back, "Enjoy the evening, sweetheart." But as soon as the message sent, she picked up her landline and called her attorney, Sophia Reynolds. "Sophia," Eleanor said, her voice steady as steel, "it's time. Report the theft of catalog item 512, $2.5 million sapphire necklace from the 19th century. Within the hour, chaos erupted at the opulent Riverside Ballroom, where Vanessa was mingling among the city's elite, the necklace gleaming against her emerald gown like a stolen star. Police sirens cut through the elegant chatter, and officers stormed in, handcuffing Vanessa amid gasps and flashing phone cameras. If you're reading this tale, drop a comment with your hometown, because what unfolds next will have you rethinking every family dynamic you've ever known. My name is Eleanor Harrington. At 68, I've spent the last 8 years fading into the wallpaper of my own home. Dismissed as the meddlesome mother-in-law who overstayed her welcome, Vanessa swept into our lives like a whirlwind when she married Teddy 8 years ago. She was the epitome of polished ambition, tall, with cascading auburn hair, always draped in designer outfits in shades of deep blue and silver, accessorized with the latest gadgets and baubles that Teddy showered upon her to maintain marital peace. From the very first family barbecue, she treated me like an outdated relic. "Eleanor, could you fetch the salad dressing, and try not to spill its stains," she'd say, her tone dripping with false sweetness. She never called me Mom or even Mrs. Harrington, just Eleanor, as if I were the hired help. Family gatherings became endurance tests. Vanessa would dominate conversations, steering them toward her latest yoga retreat or her plans for a home gym, while shooting me sidelong glances that screamed, "Why are you still here?" At Thanksgiving dinners, she'd remark loudly, "Teddy, don't you think your mom would love one of those senior communities? They have bingo and everything perfect for someone her age." Teddy, my sweet but spineless son, would fidget with his napkin and mutter, "Mom's okay where she is." Vanessa Badath could see the doubt creeping into his eyes, the way he'd avoid my gaze afterward. Vanessa was a master manipulator, planting seeds of resentment like weeds in a garden. She convinced him that the house our family legacy was too drafty for an elderly woman like me, that they needed room for their future children who never materialized. Thanks to her career ambitions, I swallowed my pride for years, biting back retorts as she rearranged my furniture, without asking, or complained about the musty smell from my antique bookshelves. Nights found me alone in my upstairs bedroom, staring at old photos of Reginald and me, wondering how I'd become a ghost in the home we'd renovated together over 35 years. Vanessa hosted brunches for her socialite friends, banishing me to the kitchen with a casual wave. "Eleanor, the ladies and I need some girl time. Why don't you bake those cookies you like?" Her friends would titter, and I'd retreat, my cheeks burning. What Vanessa and even Teddy never suspected was the hidden empire Reginald had built. A shrewd investor in his day, he'd amassed a trove of rare artifacts, coins, and jewelry, stashed in a concealed vault behind a false panel in the study, valued at over $12 million. It was his gift to me, entrusted because he knew my unassuming nature would keep it safe. Among the treasures was the necklace Vanessa had borrowed, a exquisite 18-karat gold chain with a 4-karat Burmese sapphire pendant, crafted by a renowned British artisan in 1850, appraised at $2.5 million. To the untrained eye, it resembled a quaint heirloom, perhaps worth a few $100s at a flea market. But experts knew its rarity, its flawless cut that caught light like captured midnight. That fateful day, Vanessa was prepping for the annual Symphony Gala, a black tie affair where society's creme de la creme vied for attention with their finery. I'd overheard her griping for days, "Teddy, my silver dress needs something special. Everything in my collection feels so, ordinary." As I dusted the hallway, I caught her slipping into my room, rifling through my armoire. She emerged with the necklace, twirling it in her fingers with a smug grin, assuming it was just another dusty old thing from the forgotten widow upstairs. The text arrived soon after. Her audacity laid bare. No apology, no real request, just entitlement. Something snapped inside me then, a dam breaking after 8 years of erosion. I thought of the countless indignities, the time she accidentally donated my favorite quilt to charity, claiming it clashed with her decor, the Easter brunch where she served me last, with a plate of cold leftovers because seniors don't eat much anyway, the whispered phone calls I'd overheard, like the one to her best friend, Leela. This old bat is sucking the life out of our home. Teddy's too soft to kick her out, but mark my words, I'll have this place modernized soon, starting with gutting that hideous study. With resolve, I called Sophia, Reginald's lifelong confidant and our family lawyer. She'd helped catalog the collection years ago, assigning each item an inventory number, complete with authenticity papers, insurance policies, and appraisals. Sophia, activate the safeguard protocol. Vanessa has taken item 512. Sophia paused, her voice laced with caution. Eleanor, this is irreversible. Are you certain? For too long, I'd been the doormat. Now, Vanessa would learn the cost of underestimating me. Sophia sprang into action, notifying the insurance firm and filing a theft report. The necklace was flagged as high-value stolen property, triggering an immediate response. Police were dispatched to the gala with a recovery warrant. Meanwhile, I paced the living room, memories flooding back the Mother's Day when Vanessa gifted me a dollar store mug while flaunting her new diamond earrings from Teddy, the garden party where she shooed me away from guests, saying, "Eleanor, people might think you're the nanny," the overheard argument with Teddy, "Your mother's antiques are ice. Once she's in a home, we'll trash them and turn this into a real estate gold mine." My phone rang an hour later. It was Teddy, his voice frantic. "Mom, what the hell? Cops just arrested Vanessa at the gala. They say she stole a $2.5 million necklace. This is insane. You have to fix this." I remained composed. "No mistake, son. Your wife took something priceless from your father's hidden legacy without permission." Teddy stammered. "What legacy? Dad was an accountant. He left us the house. That's it." "Mom, call them off. Vanessa's hysterical. Everyone's filming." His words stung. For 8 years, he'd watched Vanessa chip away at my dignity, offering weak protests at best. Now, he begged for her, not me. "Teddy, you've let her belittle me for years. Remember her joke at my birthday party about how I should retire to Florida before I forget my own name? You laughed. This ends now." I hung up, a mix of sorrow and steel settling in. Soon, Sophia arrived with Marcus, a seasoned private investigator in his 60s, with a nonsense demeanor and a file thick as a novel. "Eleanor," Sophia said, "we've been monitoring Vanessa for 5 months, ever since you mentioned misplaced items." I blinked in surprised height, chalked up the missing earrings and brooches to my senior moments. Marcus laid out the evidence. Photos of Vanessa at pawnshops, receipts totaling $38,000 from sold items, Reginald's lesser treasures, like a gold locket and emerald studs she'd swiped over 18 months. She was methodical, Marcus explained, only took what you wouldn't notice right away, then pawned them under false stories: a deceased aunt's inheritance, or emergency funds for a sick relative. Bank statements showed her splurging on spa days, luxury cruises, and couture, all funded by my pilfered heirlooms. Photos from her phone, obtained legally via subpoena, revealed she'd snapped images of the entire vault, plotting bigger hauls. "Why wait?" I asked. Sophia replied, "We needed ironclad proof. Today's grab is the nail in the coffin. Grand larceny, potentially 10 years behind bars." My phone buzzed again. Detective Lisa Chen. "Mrs. Harrington, your daughter-in-law, claims permission. Your son backs her, saying you've never had such wealth." I chuckled bitterly. "Detective, I'll arrive shortly with proof. She's a thief, and my modus pension is a facade. Keep her detained." An hour later, at the ballroom, chaos reigned. Vanessa, mascara-strict, sobbed in cuffs. Teddy pleaded, "Mom, forgive her, she didn't know." But as I presented the documents, the appraisals, texts, and Marcus's dossier, Vanessa's facade crumbled. "You old witch. Those trinkets were worthless anyway," she spat. The room fell silent. Teddy stared, realization dawning. In the end, I pressed charges for the thefts, but offered leniency if she agreed to counseling and restitution. Teddy, humbled, apologized profusely, vowing to counseling and restitution. Teddy, humbled, apologized profusely, vowing to make amends. Vanessa moved out, her reputation in tatters. For the first time in years, the house felt like mine again, peaceful, valued. And I emerged from the shadows, no longer invisible, but unbreakable. In the bustling city of Evergreen, where old money mingled with new ambitions, Eleanor Harrington had spent the last decade feeling like a ghost in her own sprawling Victorian mansion. Her husband, Victor, had passed away 15 years earlier, leaving her a fortune built from shrewd investments in real estate and antique collections. But Victor had always insisted on discretion. Their wealth was to remain a closely guarded secret, even from their only child, their son Theodore. Theodore, now in his mid-40s, had married Sophia 8 years ago, a sharp-witted interior designer with a penchant for high society and lavish parties. From the moment Sophia stepped into the family home, she had subtly but relentlessly pushed Eleanor to the margins, treating her like an outdated relic rather than the matriarch. It started small. Sophia redecorating rooms without consulting Eleanor, dismissing her suggestions as old-fashioned, and gradually confining her to the upstairs guest suite. "It's for your comfort, Eleanor," Sophia would say with a saccharine smile. "You shouldn't have to deal with the noise downstairs." But Eleanor knew better. Sophia saw her as an inconvenience, a frail widow who didn't belong in the modern world she and Theodore were building. Over the years, items began to vanish: silverware from Victor's collection, a vintage brooch here, a porcelain figurine there. Eleanor mentioned it once or twice, but Sophia would wave it off. "Oh, Eleanor, at your age, it's easy to misplace things. Maybe you lent it to a friend and forgot." Theodore, ever the peacemaker, would nod along, avoiding conflict. "Mom, let's not make a fuss. Sophia's just trying to help." But Eleanor wasn't losing her mind. She had suspected Sophia for months, and when a priceless emerald necklace appraised at $4.5 million, a gift from Victor during their honeymoon in Paris, disappeared from her jewelry box just before the annual Evergreen Gala, she knew it was time to act. The necklace wasn't just valuable, it was a symbol of her life with Victor, encrusted with rare gems from a bygone era. Eleanor had hired a private investigator named Elena Ramirez, a no-nonsense former detective with a knack for uncovering hidden truths. Elena's team planted discreet cameras and microphones around the house, and what they captured was damning. Sophia had been caught on tape slipping the necklace into her purse, whispering to herself, "The old bat won't even notice. She's too wrapped up in her memories to keep track." But it went deeper. Recordings revealed Sophia's phone calls to a shady antiques dealer named Julian, boasting about easy pickings from Eleanor's collection. "She's got stuff worth a fortune, but she's clueless. I could fence half of it and she'd blame her failing memory. We're talking at least $300,000 if I play my cards right." Sophia had already sold off smaller items over the past 3 years, pocketing over $60,000, all while gaslighting Eleanor into doubting her own sanity. Eleanor's lawyer, Marcus Blackwell, a silver-haired veteran of high-profile cases, reviewed the evidence with her in his oak-paneled office overlooking the city skyline. "Eleanor, this isn't just petty theft. This is grand larceny, fraud, and emotional abuse. We can nail her on multiple counts," Elena added. "And your daughter-in-law's been plotting bigger. She's shown Julian photos of your rare vases and paintings, pieces Victor acquired from European auctions. She thinks she can flip them for a windfall and remodel the entire backyard into her personal oasis." The words stung like venom. Sophia hadn't just stolen, she'd mocked Eleanor, viewing her as a senile cash cow. "Marcus," Eleanor said, her voice steady despite the fire in her eyes, "I want every charge pressed. For the necklace, for the past thefts, everything. And Theodore needs to see it all. No more secrets." Marcus nodded gravely. "Are you certain? This will explode the family. The press will swarm, and your husband's hidden fortune will be public knowledge." Eleanor gazed out at the manicured gardens below, the same ones Victor had tended with her for decades, the roses Sophia wanted to rip out for a swimming pool. Memories flooded back, the quiet evenings, the shared dreams, now tainted by years of indignities. Sophia's snide comments at dinner parties, banishing Eleanor to the kitchen when important guests arrived. The nights Eleanor wept alone, questioning her worth. "Marcus, it's time this senile old bat shows them what she's made of." They arrived at the Evergreen Grand Hotel amid chaos. The gala, a glittering affair for the city's elite, had spilled into scandal. Police lights flashed outside, reporters hovered like vultures, and well-heeled attendees whispered behind gloved hands. Inside the opulent lobby, with its crystal chandeliers and marble floors, Sophia sat on a velvet bench, flanked by 4 officers. Her emerald gown ironic, given the stolen necklace, was disheveled, mascara streaking her cheeks, wrists bound in cuffs. The necklace was gone from her neck, secured in evidence. Theodore paced nearby, arguing heatedly with the sergeant, his tuxedo rumpled, spotting Eleanor enter with Marcus and Alina. Theodore's face twisted in anger. He stormed over, voice echoing off the high ceilings. "Mother, what have you done? Fix this now. Sophia's being humiliated videos are already online. Her career, her friends, it's all ruined because of you." Eleanor's heart pounded, but she held her ground. Her reputation. "Theodore, your wife stole a $4.5 million necklace from me. This isn't some forgotten bauble, it's a felony. But you never mentioned anything that valuable." Theodore protested. "If we'd known, she wouldn't have. She thought it was just costume jewelry." Marcus thrust a leather-bound portfolio into Theodore's hands. "Mr. Harrington, these are appraisals, provenance documents, and insurance records. Your wife knew exactly what she was taking, or at least, she didn't care enough to check." Theodore flipped through the pages, his disbelief morphing into horror. Dad had all this. Why keep it secret? "Your father wanted privacy," Eleanor explained softly. "And given how Sophia's been pilfering my things for 3 years, he was wise." 3 years, Theodore echoed. Alina presented another dossier. Surveillance photos of Sophia at upscale pawnshops and auction houses, audio transcripts of her lies. "These are from my late aunt's estate and bank records tracing the sales. Your wife has fenced items totaling $60,000, Alina stated flatly. "We've got her on camera, on tape, everything." Theodore staggered, the weight of betrayal crashing down. The woman he'd idolized, the one who'd convinced him Eleanor was overreacting or forgetful, was a calculated thief. Sergeant Lopez approached. "Mrs. Harrington, confirm. Did you authorize your daughter-in-law to take the necklace?" "Absolutely not," Eleanor replied, producing a screenshot of Sophia's text. "Borrowed your old necklace for the gala. Hope you don't mind. In my book, that's theft and ownership." Lopez asked. Marcus provided the will, purchase records from 1968, and insurance docs, all legitimate. Lopez nodded. "Do you wish to press charges?" Before Eleanor could speak, Sophia wailed, "Eleanor, please, it was a mix-up. I've always respected you." Eleanor approached, her steps measured. For once, Sophia's poise shattered. "No more condescending smirks. Respect. Like relegating me to the servants' quarters during your parties, calling me forgetful while you sold my heirlooms, stealing for 3 years, assuming I'd never notice." Sophia glanced at the photos Alina held up. "Those were trinkets you weren't using. We needed the money. Theo's job doesn't cover our lifestyle. You have so much. I figured you'd forgotten them, and that justifies theft." Eleanor countered, "Lying to dealers, claiming they were yours." Theodore stared at Sophia in disgust. "You did this, and convinced me Mom was imagining things." Sophia sobbed. "Theo, we deserved better. She hoards all that wealth, why not share?" Eleanor felt a surge of clarity. "Sergeant Lopez, press every charge. Grand larceny for the necklace, multiple thefts, fraud. We have evidence for 15 incidents." "No," Sophia begged. "I'll repay everything." "Have mercy, mercy," Eleanor echoed. "After a decade of making me invisible, stealing while eroding my confidence. If you'd known the value, would you have taken more?" "Sophia," Marcus added. "Sergeant, we're pursuing all counts." Lopez Mirandized. "Sophia, you have the right to remain silent. .. As officers led her away, Theodore whispered, "Mom, I didn't know about the thefts, but you knew the mistreatment," Eleanor said gently but firmly. "The insults, the isolation. You watched and stayed silent." Theodore hung his head. "I thought you'd work it out. I didn't want to choose sides." "Silence is a choice," Eleanor replied. "Your wife abused me, stole from me, and you let it fester." Gala guests filmed discreetly. The tale of the vengeful widow exposing her scheming daughter-in-law would dominate headlines. For Sophia, image was everything. This was her undoing. That as Lopez escorted her out, Sophia twisted back, furious. "Eleanor, you've destroyed me, my life, my status, all, for some dusty necklace you ignored." "No," Eleanor said evenly. 4 years of betrayal. The necklace was the end. But I elevated this family." Sophia shrieked. "Gave you social standing you never had. Theo and I brought glamour without us. You're just a lonely widow. Eleanor almost laughed. You didn't elevate us. You eroded us. And children, you vetoed them. Too messy for our plans, you said. Theodore winced. The illusions shattering. Sophia's final threat. Proceed, and you'll lose Theo forever. He'll hate you for ruining us. Eleanor turned to her son. Is that true? Theodore paused, eyes on his handcuffed wife. No, Mom. Our marriage ended when she first stole from you. I was blind. Theodore paused, eyes on his handcuffed wife. No, Mom. Our marriage ended when she first stole from you. I was blind. Sophia gaped, speechless as she was led away. The lobby hushed, but Eleanor's heart lifted. For the first time in years, she felt seen not as a victim, but as a force. The mansion awaited, free of shadows, ready for new beginnings. Theodore, humbled, reached for her hand. Mom, can we start over? Eleanor smiled faintly. Perhaps, but first, let's reclaim what's ours. I had expected James to defend Vanessa once more, to twist the situation and pin the blame on me for her troubles, just as he had countless times over the years. But this time, the proof was undeniable. The deceptions laid bare for all to see. After Vanessa was escorted out in handcuffs, Detective Harris passed me another thick dossier. Mrs. Eleanor, he said gravely, there's more you should be aware of. Our probe uncovered that Vanessa had been consulting a lawyer who focuses on estates and trusts. It seemed she was exploring avenues to contest your late husband's will, should anything happen to you. James grew paler by the second. What exactly does that imply? He stammered. It implies, Robert interjected, his tone steady and unflinching, that your spouse wasn't content with pilfering from your mother in the here and now. She was scheming ahead, figuring out how to claim the full estate once your mother passed on. Detective Harris nodded, flipping open the folder to reveal printed emails. We uncovered correspondence between Vanessa and this attorney about the feasibility of having your mother deemed mentally unfit. The scheme involved portraying you as suffering from advanced dementia, stripping you of the legal right to handle your assets or holdings. A chill coursed through me like ice water in my veins. She intended to have me certified as incompetent, I whispered, the words tasting bitter. Precisely, Detective Harris went on. In one message, Vanessa notes how you've been misplacing items regularly, suggesting it as proof of cognitive deterioration. Naturally, we now understand you weren't misplacing anything. She was the one removing them. James slumped into a nearby armchair in the hotel lobby, his face ashen. My God, he muttered, his voice breaking. She was plotting to strip you of everything. And that's not the half of it, Robert added, his expression hardening. We also discovered she'd been urging James to persuade you into a senior living facility. Once institutionalized, securing a judicial declaration of incompetence would have been child's play. Memories flooded back unbidden. Those seemingly innocuous chats where Vanessa would hint that I was getting too frail for independent living, that a care home would be a blessing, a place tailored for folks in my golden years. It had never been about kindness. It was a meticulously crafted ploy to commandeer my wealth. Mrs. Eleanor, Detective Harris said, his voice laced with concern. Your daughter-in-law is far more cunning than we first suspected. This isn't impulsive kleptomania over a few trinkets. We're dealing with a calculated multi-year blueprint to usurp your entire legacy and legitimize it through the courts by branding you unfit. James raised his head, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Mom, I had no inkling of any of this. When she brought up the assisted living idea, I genuinely believed it stemmed from worry for your health. I settled beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. James, darling, she played you just as masterfully as she did me. She mastered the art of saying precisely what would make her motives appear pure. Robert snapped his folder shut, fixing me with a solemn gaze. Eleanor, given the weight of this evidence, the prosecutor will likely extend a plea deal to Vanessa. Depending on negotiations, she could be looking at 5 to 15 years behind bars, and the funds from what she's already fenced. I inquired, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. Many of the items ended up with discreet buyers, Detective Harris explained. We anticipate recovering about 60% of the value through traces and seizures. The remainder, likely squandered on her extravagant habits, designer wardrobes, luxury getaways, you name it. James exhaled heavily, his shoulders sagging. Mom, what comes next? For me, for our family. It was a profound query. In mere hours, our world had shattered and reformed. My daughter-in-law handcuffed and en route to jail, facing a lengthy sentence, my son, finally awakening to the reality that his partner was a felon, intent on plundering my fortune, and meet the frail, overlooked widow who'd faded into the background for a decade, thrust abruptly into the spotlight. James, I replied, clasping his hand firmly, what follows is your choice, the sort of man you aspire to become. For 10 years, you stood by silently as she demeaned me. Now, armed with the truth, what will you do, Mom? I yearned to rectify this, to atone for every instance I failed to stand up for you. Atonement transcends finances, James. It's rooted in dignity, in vowing never to let anyone render me a ghost in my own domain again. He nodded, his expression resolute yet vulnerable. Could I crash here tonight? The thought of that empty house terrifies me after today. For the first occasion in a decade, my son sought solace from me, rather than dictating terms to suit his wife's whims. Naturally, you may stay, but come morning, we must discuss mending our bond earnestly. As we departed the hotel, snippets of the scandal already flickered on nearby screens. Wealthy widow exposes scheming daughter-in-law in $3 million heist involving priceless heirloom. By dawn, the city would buzz with tales of Eleanor, the forgotten matriarch revealed as a force to reckon with. The following morning dawned with a novelty I hadn't savored in years, awakening in my own abode without the sensation of being an interloper. James had bunked in his childhood quarters, and descending to the kitchen, I found him brewing coffee, a simple act, yet one absent for so long, where I'd been the perpetual servant rather than the served. Morning, Mom, he greeted, and his tone carried a newfound reverence, an unspoken plea for forgiveness woven into each syllable. Good morning, my boy. I claimed my spot at the antique oak table, where Harold and I had shared countless breakfasts over 4 decades, the same surface, where Vanessa had relegated me to the role of unwanted spectator. James set a steaming mug before me and took the opposite seat. I tossed all night, Mom, reliving every snide remark Vanessa aimed at you that I ignored, every time you mentioned a missing item, and I chalked it up to age. James, I interjected tenderly, don't torment yourself over her. Vanessa possesses a razor-sharp mind. She orchestrated scenarios to paint her as the compassionate one, while siphoning my treasures. But as your son, I owed you allegiance. I should have spotted the red flags. I savored the coffee, meeting his gaze squarely. The past is prologue. Focus on tomorrow. Will you cling to a union with the woman who plotted my financial ruin and my committal? Silence enveloped him, his features contorted in turmoil. A decade of marriage lingered, her shadow still potent despite the revelations. Then, the phone shattered. The quiet. It was Robert. Eleanor, urgent update. The DA requests your presence this morning. Vanessa's web is vaster than anticipated. Vaster? In what sense? A raid on her residence last night revealed a concealed chamber in the cellar. Your daughter-in-law wasn't merely dipping into your coffers. She's orchestrated a syndicate peddling stolen antiques, ensnaring multiple affluent clans across town. My pulse quickened. Elaborate, over 50 artifacts and gems, none traceable to her or James. She leveraged her entree into elite Cosgalas, Suarez to scout marks, then coordinated intricate burglaries. Your home served not just as a target, but as her headquarters. James blanched. You're implying our place has been a hub for crime all these years. Robert pressed on. Documents show she peddled intel to career crooks, blueprints, itineraries, alarm codes. The feds are stepping in. This spans multiple jurisdictions. The revelation staggered me. The woman who dined at my table, slumbered beneath my eaves, partaken of my hospitality for a decade, hadn't merely robbed me blind, she'd commandeered my sanctuary for a sprawling, illicit empire. Robert, implications for James. Could he be implicated? The Bureau will interrogate him, but evidence points to his ignorance. She insulated him meticulously. Post-call. James and I lingered in stunned quietude. My cherished haven, forged with Harold through love and labor, desecrated beyond comprehension. Mom, James ventured at last, how could I share a life with a felon for 10 years oblivious? Because she engineered your blindness, I responded. Individuals like Vanessa excel at partitioning existences. To you, the poised consort at functions. To me, the belittling kin. To her prey, the shadowy architect of ruin. Compartments, airtight. An hour hence, Robert arrived, flanked by FBI operatives, Agent Laura Thompson and Agent David Reyes. They delineated how, Vanessa's exploits integrated into a protracted probe of an interstate antiquities racket. Mrs. Eleanor, Agent Thompson articulated, we surmise she's utilized your residence as operational nexus for no less than 3 years, linking to heists in 7 states. Agent Reyes elaborated, her modus operandi was ingenious. No brute force entries. She ingratiated into high society, scrutinized domiciles amid festivities, then auctioned that intel to pros. How did she evade detection? James queried. Vanessa's brilliance shines. Agent Thompson replied, she abstained from Hansen larceny, functioning as scout and broker. At banquets auctions, she catalogued valuables surreptitiously. Agent Reyes proffered a binder brimming with images, hundreds of clandestine snaps from gatherings, artworks, baubles on attendees, even surveillance setups and floor plans. Perusing them, I identified familiar estates, abodes of acquaintances from philanthropic circles I'd frequented. Agent Thompson, I probed, so other households fell prey. At minimum, 15 confirmed. Aggregate haul surpasses $25 million. James appeared. Minimum, 15 confirmed. Aggregate haul surpasses $25 million. James appeared utterly shattered. Agent Reyes, am I under suspicion? We've vetted your records, correspondences, routines, no complicity evident, yet your full collaboration is imperative. Agent Thompson pivoted to me. One more. Upon apprehension, Vanessa commenced bargaining, proffering her syndicate's underbelly for leniency. What specifics? Rosters of Confederates, unresolved capers, particulars, caches of loot. She's bartering her empire to dodge 2 decades incarcerated. Robert inquired, for Eleanor. If she flips, what's her exposure? Should her intel crack the cases and net arrests, 6 to 10 years versus 25 plus? James groaned. Even caged, she games the system. Savvy offenders always harbor contingencies. Agent Reyes noted. Post departure, I reclined in my parlor, assimilating the onslaught. My domicile, a criminal epicenter for years. The one who'd rendered me spectral had exploited it to victimize peers. Mom, James murmured, perching adjacent. How do we navigate this? How do I reconstruct after a decade wed to a crook? I regarded my son, this middle-aged man reduced to boyish bewilderment. James, emulate me. Refuse Vanessa dominion over your destiny. She deceived you, ravaged me, weaponized our kin. Truth empowers choice. Your intent, Mom. I beamed, a dormant vigor rekindling. Son, I'll unveil Eleanor's true essence to the globe, ensuring no kin endures our ordeal. Ensuing days blurred into frenzy, reshaping my existence. Robert orchestrated a media briefing positioning me as prime casualty, yet pivotal exposer of Vanessa's syndicate. For the inaugural in a decade, acclaim beckoned for merit. Conference morn, I arose at first light, donning my finest sapphire gown purchased for heralds and my golden jubilee, yet unworn due to Vanessa's barbs on my antiquated taste. Adorning surviving jewels, I reclaimed the poised, formidable self long eclipsed. James escorted me to the venue. Mom, he confided en route, I'm immensely proud. These trials have been harrowing, but your resilience, Dad would beam. The chamber teemed with reporters, lenses, spectators eager for the saga of the affluent widow who ensnared her felonious kin. Entry evoked a shift, gazes not of disdain, but esteem, intrigue, awe. Robert initiated. Greetings, I'm Robert Jenkins, counsel for Mrs. Eleanor, 73. Victim of her daughter-in-law's machinations, yet key in dismantling a perennial theft cartel. He beckoned me forth. Approaching the lectern, serenity enveloped me. Silenced for years, now an audience hung on my utterances. I'm Eleanor, I commenced. For a decade, I endured emotional torment and methodical larceny from Vanessa, my daughter. Yet, grasp this. Mine echoes myriad seniors preyed upon by kin, viewing them as vulnerable quarries. I narrated not as woebegone sufferer, but resilient sentinel who'd bided amassed proofs, struck decisively. Vanessa deemed me a doddering relic, blind to her felonies. I declared. Unbeknownst, Harold instilled vigilance, forbearance, tactics. Suspecting foul play, I eschewed confrontation, probed covertly, awaited opportune strike. A scribe interposed. Mrs. Eleanor, why the delay? Why not alert authorities sooner? Proof paramount to thwart her spins. Premature action. She'd portray me as delirious fabulist. Another queried sentiments on her home as crime lair. Betrayed, assuredly, yet empowered for. My vigilance halted it. My proofs felled the syndicate. Post-event deluge ensued. National media bids, docuseries, pitches, most poignant kinfolk echoes from seniors mirroring my plight. Margaret phoned, tearful. Eleanor, your broadcast resonated. My nephew pilfers heirlooms, kin dismiss as senility. You've awakened me. Sophia shared. My son's spouse pushes dubious papers. Your tale prompts independent counsel. These illuminated my ordeals. Universality. Numerable elders exploited, bereft of defenses. That Eve, James and I conversed profoundly. Mom, divorce looms. I can't abide ties to one who ravaged you. Revealed as crooked. Certain. Son, monumental. Utterly. Decade prioritizing her over you. My gravest error. Not recurring. 3 days on. Unanticipated outreach. Producer Alina. Inspired by briefing. Mrs. Eleanor. Envision helming a program aiding seniors suspecting familial predation. Intrigued, I queried. Format. Investigative. Advisory empowering victims. A Kenya saga. Exposing schemes. The proposition ignited purpose anew. Once upon a time, in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Chicago, lived Eleanor, a 72-year-old widow who had spent her life building a home filled with love and memories. Her husband, Robert, had passed away 12 years earlier from a long battle with heart disease, leaving her with their spacious Victorian house, a collection of antique furniture, family heirlooms, and a modest but valuable art collection amassed over decades of travels. Eleanor's only child, her son Michael, had married Sophia 8 years ago, and the couple had moved in with Eleanor shortly after Robert's death, citing financial struggles and the need for family support. At first, Eleanor welcomed them with open arms, thrilled to have her family close. But over the years, Sophia's behavior began to chip away at Eleanor's sense of security. It started subtly. Sophia would rearrange the furniture without asking, claiming it made the house more modern. She would dismiss Eleanor's suggestions in the kitchen, saying, "Times have changed, Eleanor. No one cooks like that anymore." Michael, always the peacemaker, would brush off his mother's concerns, urging her to adapt for the sake of harmony. Eleanor felt increasingly like a guest in her own home, her opinions sidelined, her presence tolerated rather than cherished. One evening, as Eleanor sorted through old photo albums in her bedroom, she noticed something missing: a delicate gold locket that had belonged to her grandmother, worth perhaps $5,000. She searched everywhere, but it was gone. Sophia shrugged when asked, suggesting Eleanor might have misplaced it in her old age. Weeks later, a pair of silver candlesticks vanished, then a vintage porcelain vase. Eleanor began to suspect theft. But who? The house was secure, and no strangers came in. Doubting her own memory, she started keeping a secret journal, noting the disappearances. The humiliations escalated. At family gatherings, Sophia would make snide remarks. "Eleanor, why don't you rest? You're looking so tired these days." Michael would laugh it off, but Eleanor felt the sting. Sophia pushed for Eleanor to downsize her belongings, saying the house was cluttered with junk. One day, Sophia even suggested Eleanor move to a senior living facility, claiming it would be better for her health. Eleanor refused, but the pressure mounted. She felt invisible, her once vibrant life reduced to quiet endurance. Desperate for clarity, Eleanor confided in her old friend Margaret, who recommended hiring a private investigator named Alex. Discreetly, Eleanor used her savings to employ Alex, who installed hidden cameras around the house. What they uncovered shattered Eleanor's world. The footage showed Sophia sneaking into Eleanor's room at night, rifling through drawers, and pocketing items. Further investigation revealed Sophia was part of a larger scheme. She sold the stolen goods to shady dealers, using the money for lavish vacations and designer clothes. Worse, Sophia had forged documents to access Eleanor's bank accounts, siphoning small amounts that added up to thousands. Alex dug deeper and found Sophia connected to a network of fraudsters targeting elderly homeowners, corrupt lawyers who drafted fake wills, appraisers who undervalued assets, and fences who laundered stolen antiques. Sophia had even planned to coerce Eleanor into signing over the house deed. Armed with evidence, Eleanor confronted Michael in private. Tearfully, she showed him the videos. Michael was devastated, denying it at first, but the proof was undeniable. "How could I have been so blind?" he whispered. Together, they reported Sophia to the authorities. The police raid came swiftly. Sophia was arrested mid-packing for another getaway. In her possession were more stolen items, including a rare painting worth $150,000 that Eleanor had inherited from Robert. The news exploded. Local papers dubbed it the matriarch's betrayal. Eleanor, once reclusive, found herself in the spotlight. Reporters camped outside her home, and she gave a press conference, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "For years, I was made to feel worthless," she said, "but no more. This is for every senior who's been silenced." The backlash was immense. Public outrage poured in. Letters, calls, and donations flooded Eleanor's mailbox. Michael stood by her side, publicly apologizing for his inaction. Sophia, facing charges of theft, fraud, and elder abuse, cracked under pressure and began cooperating with the FBI, exposing the entire ring. But Eleanor's story resonated beyond the scandal. A television producer named Sarah approached her. "Your experience could help others. Let's create a show where seniors share their stories, and experts offer advice." Eleanor hesitated, but agreed. With conditions, the show must focus on empowerment, not sensationalism, and Proceeds would fund a foundation for elder protection. They named it Eleanor's Insight. For the first time, Eleanor felt seen not as a victim, but as a survivor. That night, alone in her reclaimed home, she reflected on her transformation. A week prior, she was overlooked. Now, she was a beacon. The FBI, thanks to Sophia's testimony, arrested for more accomplices. A text from Detective Ramirez read, "Your courage dismantled the syndicate preying on dozens of families." Eleanor smiled. The useless old lady had outsmarted them all. 2 weeks later, Eleanor's Insight debuted to rave reviews. Calls poured in from elders sharing tales of manipulation and theft. Michael donated $150,000 from family savings to launch the Eleanor Foundation for Senior Advocacy. Ironically, the funds Sophia coveted now shielded others from similar fates. Alex called with updates. Sophia's info led to 18 arrests, total thieves, forgers, dealers. She's facing 15 years, plus restitution. Justice felt bittersweet. Then, a shocking call from prison. Sophia, sobbing genuinely. "Eleanor, I need to confess. It started smaller necklace for bills, but the money, it addicted me. I envied your life, your home, Robert's legacy. I felt like an outsider, so I pushed you out." Eleanor listened, unmoved at first. "You humiliated me for years." Sophia admitted, "I wanted to feel superior, but I ruined everything, my marriage, my freedom." Michael had filed for divorce, unable to forgive. Eleanor hung up, a mix of pity and closure washing over her. That evening, Michael visited for dinner. A new ritual. "Was Sophia sincere?" he asked. "Perhaps," Eleanor replied, "but we've learned, never let toxicity fester." The foundation grew. An anonymous $4 million donation came from a family saved by the show. Mrs. Thompson recognized her niece's schemes, mirroring Sophia's pressuring for signatures, borrowing heirlooms. They intervened in time, arresting the niece. Eleanor's pain had become a shield for others. 1 year on, the show aired in 28 countries, aiding over 800 families. Personally, transformation bloomed. Michael arrived one morning with a woman. "Mom, meet Laura. We've been seeing each other for 5 months." Laura, a kind-hearted teacher in her 40s, greeted Eleanor warmly. "Your story inspires me. You're a force." Laura respected Eleanor's role, asking about Robert, the house's history. "What can I do to be a good daughter-in-law?" she inquired one day while baking. "Respect our past, contribute to our future, communicate openly, never isolate." Months later, Michael proposed with Eleanor's blessing, the ring chosen together symbolizing renewal after Sophia's thefts. The wedding in their garden honored traditions. Eleanor spoke, "From betrayal rose resilience." Laura, "Join us in building with love." Messages from viewers continued. A man regained his home after exposing his brother's fraud. Inspired by Eleanor. Final news. Sophia's appeal denied. 15 years firm. Eleanor felt no rage, only compassion for lost chances. "Robert, I hope you're watching," she whispered under the stars. The overlooked widow had reclaimed her voice, forging a legacy of strength, the truest victory, rebuilding beyond the ruins. If this tale moved you, share your thoughts. What would you do in Eleanor's place? Have you heard similar stories? For more, like and subscribe. Endless inspirations await.